So my favorite topic, counterfeit money. The Imitation Nation podcast covers all things counterfeit, hosted by Shabir and Bersafdar of the Partnership for Safe Medicines and Sven Bergman of Venture Global. All statements are their own and not the opinions of their employers. In this episode of Imitation Nation, we cover a seizure of over $1 billion worth of fake money, fake USDA stickers on that steak you're buying, and 200 illegal online pharmacies that were taken offline by the DEA. All right, Sven, welcome to Imitation Nation 26 and the era of video.
You know, we're 26 now, so we moved out of our parents' basement. So we have an actual studio now, although it's virtual. It's an exciting evolution. I like it.
The studio being the same place that I do all my Zoom calls all day long.
Well, hey, come on. Baby steps, right?
How are you this week?
This week has been crazy busy. I was in Miami Monday, Tuesday. I had dinner with the Indiana sheriffs on Wednesday night, which was amazing. Some of stuff for you. And then I'm flying to Reno tomorrow to meet with Western State sheriffs. So it's great. Stuff's busy because, as you know, criminals don't stop and sleep. So there's just a lot to talk about to fix. And I think there's also a lot to talk about in this show today.
Yeah. Well, let's actually start with that. A big congratulations for me go out to CBP Pittsburgh, which often posts some of their wins to social media, and I always watch for those. They seized $300,000 in fake handbags and jewelry, Chanel, Christian Dior products, Louis Vuitton. And what caught my eye is that the officers in question actually got assistance from folks that work with the trademark holders. And they actually asked them, can you help us work with us to confirm this, which is not a thing that is unusual, but It's always great to see it happening. I think it would happen a little bit more if there was a piece of legislation in Congress that I know our friends at the Anti-Counterfeiting Coalition, the IACC, have been pushing, SB 2677 and HR 4930. It would just make super clear that, you're allowed to release, for example, what's on the package and what the package looks like and the identity of the sender for a package of counterfeit jewelry and purses to the trademark holders so they can also do work to dismantle that counterfeiting network. So big win. And it just suggests why this is both a public and a private effort here.
Yeah, no, and I think, what those brands probably did is, they probably did a lot of training with CBP and really made sure they created a great partnership. So that kind of was great that they got looped in, and that makes it bigger. And then you're right. The sharing is so important. Now, just for perspective here, I've worked with Travis on this since literally 2012. So it goes on 14 years now, right? It's one of those issues where you wonder of how does that not get resolved quicker legislatively? So I know we're going all out push this year. It'd be lovely for that to share because it's just, take a picture of the label, take a picture of the manifest, take a picture of the product, send that on to the brand protection team so they can start their investigations. So for Customs, who does it well, it can be a great partnership. So let's hope. All right. So I found something. I have a really juicy lawsuit here. So Estee Lauder has filed a major lawsuit against Walmart. They're alleging that the company allowed counterfeit Estee Lauder products to be sold through its online marketplace, right? So not Walmart is selling it. It's being sold on their marketplace. And they profit from these sales through fees and fulfillment services. So the suit followed a large CNBC investigation that highlighted really widespread fakes available on Walmart's platform. And Walmart is expected to respond by this to seek a motion to dismiss, as they have for prior lawsuits. And they probably will argue that Section 230 shields them, right, from liability for actions of third-party sellers. However, it will be really interesting to see whether that argument in this case holds, since the Estee Lauder has made a very good case saying, no, Walmart, you did far more here than just passively hosting that. The lawsuit claims that Walmart actively facilitated and promoted the sale. They used the trademarks and they used them for optimization in advertising and traffic. So they help with that in their search terms. They basically optimized on their platform for these. And so the complaint asserts that Walmart exercised meaningful control over listings, promotion, warehousing, fulfillment, and cannot hide behind the platform immunity when they actively financially benefit from the infringement. So we'll see. If the courts agree, this would certainly be a new hole in the Section 230 protection, but we'll see. It's a very robust lawsuit. I encourage people to read about it. And, I think, as you know, my always rant, I'm tired of folks just hiding behind this. It's just, if I would have a real estate building of a building and folks sell counterfeit under it, I couldn't just say, oh, I didn't know what they're doing. It doesn't work. So,
especially not if you help them optimize their marketing.
yes, if you draw the advertising sign for them, you can't say, oh, I didn't know what they're doing. So yeah, it's
this sign should be here to get more attention. I mean, this is similar to when Google, at this point, over a decade and a half ago, got dinged for helping illegal online pharmacies optimize their advertising on their platform.
Oh, I remember that.
In order, right? So they
Right.
helped with the marketing, and they ended up paying a $500 million fine as a
Yeah.
result because they were not passive participants in the crime.
Yeah. So we'll see where this goes. This one is a good one.
I was fascinated. There's more than one Cumberland County, but this is Cumberland County, Pennsylvania. I was fascinated by a case where the USDA was going after and accused a particular farm, and it actually expanded to a couple of them in Cumberland County, Pennsylvania, for using fake USDA inspection stickers on meat.
Wow.
And they ended up searching one of the farms, and they found dyes for making stickers. So they found, the equivalent of a fake pill mold, but for making these fake USDA inspection stickers. And they indeed found a couple of the stickers in the purse of a person accused of being part of the crime there on the premises. The individual involved, and I read the charging sheet because it's a Pennsylvania state case, not a federal case out of Pacer.
Yeah.
1 count of forgery, 2 counts of trademark counterfeiting, knowingly making a false statement, and a deceptive business practice charge. You can buy real looking, but fake USDA inspection stickers on the internet.
Really?
I went and Googled it. It's not hard.
All right.
Yeah. I'm excited in the sense that, with all the counterfeit stamps out there, I haven't seen a lot of USPS action on that, but here the
Still
USDA
waiting.
is going after this for meat, and I think that's probably really important.
Yeah. No, I think it's great because this goes beyond just regular counterfeiting, right? If you think about when you see the USDA seal on food or on meat, you know and you assume, and that's what it does, that it was inspected, it's safe, it won't hurt you. And to have that counterfeited, that's always like a direct threat to public health and safety, like you can be E. coli and all kinds of stuff. What I found interesting, what you found, is that they found like the dyes to make them, or the print dye, so they can make more of those. So that really shows a larger one. But the craziest one for me is that you can buy these online, the stickers. Like that's not a safe distribution method for something that it's like me randomly buying authentication labels for products online on the open marketplace. So I think USDA, I hope they win. Absolutely. And after that, take a strong look at, hey, are we doing this the right way? And is this secure enough for us, right?
Well, I think one of the problems is, I found a USDA handout that shows like the different seals and what they mean, and I presume all that's counterfeited. And then I found different USDA seals, stickers for sale online, and I thought, I as a consumer don't really know what the real USDA sticker looks like, and so all of those other lookalikes that have the word USDA on them are all trademark infringements, of course.
Yeah.
And I hope they go after them, because the consumer confusion, like, we just don't know what the official inspection sticker looks like, most of us.
Yeah, 100%. And it can also be used by foreign meat producers to basically dump meat, right? There's a lot of like import dumping. And so, yeah, absolutely. So let's hope they win.
In this case, it's domestic. Pennsylvanians, not Chinese farmers dumping meat on the market.
Yeah. All right. So this week we have like lawsuits abound. This one is also fantastic. So Novo Nordisk has filed a patent infringement lawsuit against Hims or Hims and Hers. It's alleging the company that it is violating or infringing the company's GLP-1 weight loss products through the new pill that they launched. And they're doing this without the authorization, obviously, of Novo. And Novo claims that the formulation, delivery methods, they're just way too close to or really copying the protected innovations that are tied to their blockbuster drugs, like Wegovy and Ozempic. And the lawsuit is in response to Hims' launch promotion of this GLP-1 bill with like a TV ad and all of that. And Novo Nordisk said it had repeatedly raised two concerns with Hims and said, hey, you can't do this, that's ours. But then they persisted. And although after immense pressure from Novo, Hims said that since they discontinued both the ad and the product in question, but as you and I talked about yesterday on a different conference call, I still saw the ad on Wednesday in Indiana on CNBC or MSNBC in the morning. So I don't know if they really took it down. And I think for that reason also, Novo Nordisk, nevertheless filed the suit and is asking the court to permanently ban Hims and Hers from selling compounded version of its drugs that infringe on clear patents.
Well, and they're not the only ones. That's the
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing. I was looking at a report from the Alliance for Pharmacy Compounding about the business of compounding, and a significant percentage of people of compounders in this space are making oral dose GLP-1s,
Wow.
semaglutide, both sublingual and oral dose form. And apart from the fact that, for Novo Nordisk to do this, they had to get an FDA approval to show that it was both safe and effective.
Yeah.
That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
None of these compounders have done that, and
No.
so they're just releasing an unreviewed, unsubstantiated, untrialed product onto the American people. I think it's super dangerous and also super fraudulent.
Yeah.
And honestly, I hope Hims and Hers, gets smacked.
I think you raise a great point here, which is and for folks that are not living in the pharmaceutical world or that exposed, getting a drug to approval is not as simple as like, oh, I cook something together, press in a pill, and like, oh, there you go. There are clinical trials. You got to show equivalency of efficaciousness of what was previously approved. Clinical trials run in the millions, and depending on size of population, hundreds of millions. It's super expensive to do this. You probably spend hundreds of millions, sometimes $1 billion upfront testing the tech until you even get to a clinical trial. And to your point, for then a compounder to say, oh, I roughly do the same thing, and I tested it on nobody, and my clinical trial will be now the tens of thousands of people I'm just going to give it out to, it's just it's just wrong, but it's dangerous, it's scrupulous, and that's got to stop. That's not what compounding was invented for. Compounding was, my daughter at one point in time needed a medicine where she was allergic to an ingredient in there, or she needed a pill, didn't like pills, we had to make it into a liquid, right? That's what or that's what people use compounding for. That's what it was invented for, not the,
Yeah.
oh yeah, let's make way cheaper copycat versions. So I do hope they prevail.
I remember when this came out, it was right about the time of the Super Bowl, which is now a flashpoint for illegal compounding advertising. And I did the math, like the Wegovy pill that it's a copy of had come onto the market 5 weeks earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So they took a drug that was brand new to the market and basically started pirating it. And, that, like it or not like it, our system actually gives you an exclusive marketing opportunity once you've invested the 1.4 billion it takes to actually bring a drug to market of some number of years where your patent holds. And the idea that exclusivity of years was cut down to 5 weeks is appalling. Absolutely appalling.
Yeah.
Like you want to know how you find out that your country no longer gets medicines when they're invented and they go to
Yeah.
some other country with better patent protection. Well, this is how you find that out.
Yeah, no, 100%. No, and if you think about it, if you're a drug manufacturer, right, and you spend, as you say, hundreds of millions, 1.4, 2, like it's normally in the billions to do this. And when you don't have the protection, I'm not going to spend that money. So your innovation goes away, right? And that's especially hurtful for small patient populations, right? Where you don't have, GLP-1s, there's a large patient population. So you can actually offer the product for, just hundreds or thousands because the population is large to recoup that. If you're talking small populations, which is also one of the reasons why the drugs end up being so expensive, because you're spending so much money into it. If I can't even protect that will be the first one that is cut. I'm going to cut small patient populations with super rare, super complicated diseases, ALS, all of that first, because I'm like, I can't possibly recoup it if my recoup period is weeks or months.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Right.
So my favorite topic, counterfeit money. So I really love the way that Europol has sort of perfected this multi-country operation rhythm and process, and how they do these deep dives. And you know this because of you and I are both fans of Operation Pangea. Well,
Always.
they have a thing called Operation Decoy. This is the third one. It ran from June through November of last year. So we're getting data here in February. It's very recent. This was an effort to intercept counterfeit currency being mailed. And it almost exclusively came out of China.
Of course.
And they found, hold your horses, 1.2 billion euros worth.
With a B?
Worth more than a dollar.
Wow.
1.2 billion euros worth of counterfeit euros, US dollars, British pounds, and Swiss francs being mailed into the Western world from Chinese counterfeiters. They intercepted about 300, almost 400 mail parcels
Nice.
containing counterfeit currency. And in classic good investigator fashion, they followed many of them to warehouses where they discovered more.
That's how you do it.
That had shown up. 18 different countries participated, and I'm still sort of stunned. What does it mean to have $1 billion of fake currency affecting your market? It really, I mean, it seems like a national security risk from an adversary country.
Yeah, there's that's a solid amount of money. So, just for perspective, when I was with the Indiana sheriffs on Wednesday, we're talking about all kinds of things that they had seen, and the last one one of them said, he's like, they just took out a recent bust on somebody, not counterfeit money, but actually drug money that they seized, and they seized $50 million, and they're like, that is just so much money and it's incredible. What you just described is like, 500 times that amount. And that's just what they caught, right? So you always got to think about, that's not it. That's a percentage of what's being shipped in. So yeah, it's dilutive. It is super hurt. It all kinds of stuff. For me, what I found interesting here is the coordination, right? 18 countries, fantastic, always great. I love how they did it the exact right way, which is they see the parcels, then they go upper level, then they go to distribution level, then they go next step, then they dismantle the warehouse. So they're like, this, it was such a beautiful case study of how proper law enforcement procedures work. It was great. But yeah, the span, I looked at the pictures, those US dollar bills look really good. The euro notes look amazing. They look genuinely amazing. So
yeah, I'd love to actually hold one, because the texture, as you know, of the bill is a big part of making a convincing fake.
Of the US dollar bill, if you had a euro is made out of this weird plasticky paper. So it actually would be interesting to see if that feels the same, like weird. Your money feels really weird, but and that's me saying it is a both American and European, but I'm always like, because I can't fold in my money clip, all that. I don't like your clip. It's fine.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Moving on. So there is actually sad news. Kind of showing what we always said, that illicit trade can really, really hurt legitimate businesses. British American Tobacco in South Africa has said that it will shut down its only local manufacturing plant left in the country by the end of 2026. And that is because the illicit market there now dominates sales so much that it makes it impossible for them to compete. The factory was already only running at about 35% capacity, since illicit products in South Africa, get this, make up as much as 75% of the market, right? So your market completely flipped. The closure of the plant will basically eliminate 230 jobs. And the British American Tobacco says that, the price gaps that were created with crazy taxation levels, weak enforcement, have just make it unsustainable. And this is really a real world example of something you and I talk often to about policymakers, where we warn them, if you take, policy decisions that have serious unintended consequences, like think it through what this will do, think it how the market will be created. If you don't think that through, and if you don't take that seriously, these illicit markets develop, and if they're not immediately and heavily combated, they become entrenched, and then oftentimes they become nearly impossible to get rid of. So South Africa is literally a case study now on, like, this is where this goes if you don't combat illicit markets early. And to actually circle back to like the compounding thing, that's a great example. The amount of, when I drive around med spas, when I see all the stuff that they advertise, a lot of those are, and there's very good actors, I know that, but there's a lot of these that are just illicit, and they're kind of just in society and it's accepted as normal. And it gets harder and harder the more you allow it. Prohibition in the US was the greatest example, where we allowed that to fester for 7 years and created the largest criminal syndicates in the history of the US. So, very sad story out of South Africa.
Yeah. Well, I mean, IP protection. If you want to have a manufacturing industry, you can get rid of it quick if you just don't do any IP protection. It'll just flee.
Yeah, and for them it
Absolutely
was
flee.
not even IP protection. For them it was not counterfeit. That those were known as illicit whites. So they're just products that are not regulated. They technically don't have a legal market. They just produce
Yeah.
them. They evade all taxes. God knows who made them. Wasn't reviewed. Wasn't, like, it's just, and it's unfortunate. It also undermines all the public health policies that they're intending to do with this. So it's very sad. It's a cautionary tale for many other markets.
Yeah. Well, on our side, a good news story with, caused by some patient harm, unfortunately. But the
Yeah.
DEA actually just dismantled 200 different illegal
Yeah.
online pharmacies, at least their domains, tied to a network out of India that had been shipping counterfeits with fentanyl and methamphetamine into the United States. They have traced the network to 6 fatal overdoses.
Hmm.
And so this was an enormous effort. The pharmacy websites in question were all obviously designed to look legitimate. And as we know from consumer studies, Americans can't tell
No.
that websites that look like real pharmacies aren't real pharmacies. In fact,
Mhm.
over half of Americans polled that looked at Google results for online pharmacies thought that the FDA actually reviewed those pharmacies. So these folks are both a combination of clever at the same time as Americans are sort of unprepared to really vet what they find online. Uh, but really good work by the
Great
DEA
work.
here. They've never stopped making this a priority, and I was really happy to be able to give them the kudos for working on this.
Yeah. No, the scale of that was tremendous. DEA is doing some great work. 200 websites in one swoop. That's amazing. But it shows you kind of the scale of the operation. What really worried me in that is not that fentanyl pills are not worrying. I'm really worried that we see more and more pills made with meth, right? Because as we know, meth pills chemically can mimic or try to mimic what's in Adderall. And you saw my post on LinkedIn when the DEA posted a seizure they had in the US. We're like, oh, we seized these pills, and all the pills were orange. And
Yeah.
normally M30s or counterfeit fentanyl pills are not orange. They're normally blue. So I have a call to DEA to say, hey, were those made to look like Adderall. So are we now starting to take Adderall pills with some meth, with some fentanyl? So concerning that they do this. Again, a reminder for everybody, do not buy your prescription drugs online, with the exception of it has a .pharmacy at the end, because that's a protected domain of the National Board of Pharmacies. It's just too dangerous. It really is too dangerous for these kind of things. So I'm big shout out to DEA. They're doing some stellar work these days.
Yeah. So I feel like we should have Dr. Grover on from the California professor who has a lab where he does interesting and novel technology around anti-counterfeiting. But
I love it.
Since Dr. Grover is not here, what have you found in this world?
Let me pull out my lab coat. No, I won't. So this will be a cool new segment that I titled "Cool New Tech Corner." I clearly should. It was a good call that I didn't become a copywriter after college. Anyway, so there's two stories. The first one is researchers have developed a new technique that encodes live bacteria on a substrate that, when exposed to a certain wavelengths, can reveal hidden messages like a QR code. And so that's super interesting. You basically put bacteria in a substrate, you can then apply a light, and that bacteria, some of them die, some of them stay, and then exposed to a different light, you get a QR code. The reason why that's so cool is it is covert, nobody sees it. The code will naturally denigrate or disintegrate. It cannot be copied, cannot be replicated. It's just something, it's cool. We'll see when it becomes commercial, but I just always fascinated, like, oh, that was a really smart thing to do. So love that. That was the first one. And then the second one is scientists are developing more and more techniques that put smart adhesive with covert optical markers. So basically put a covert optical marker into the glue that you then put in your packaging, right in the glue. And they emit unique signals under specific wavelength of light. And they're invisible. You can't see them, but they're readable with the proper equipment. And I love that, because the authentication, it's built right into the product. It can't be not like a label ripped off. Those technologies are normally pretty inexpensive. They're applicable to a wide range of products. They're hidden, they're covert. I love it. I think it's a really smart one. We put a link in the show. Pretty dense study to read, but it's a really cool tech.
Yeah, so this is really interesting. I just think back to our interview with Stefan that just got published last week, where he was talking about how, a good long-term anti-counterfeiting strategy that uses covert features does not use them all at once. So this might be a feature that you move to at a different time.
Yeah.
And certainly if you make it part of the construction of the product, that actually is a really, really interesting and powerful way to protect your product.
Yeah. No, I love that. No, it was very good. Yeah, it was a busy week in counterfeit news.
Really was. We'll put all of this in the show notes, and we look forward to seeing you next week. We've got some interviews coming up in the next couple of weeks to go with our news. So tune in, and we'll see you next time on Imitation Nation.
All right, Shabir, read us out.
The Imitation Nation podcast is a production of Cause Stories and is the sole owner of this production. Podcast production by Elizabeth Rood. Podcast management by Sarah Imber Safdar. Theme music written by Jonathan Boyle.